welcome to What's Happening. In this regular roundup, Real Media and Phoenix Media Cooperative have teamed up to provide unashamedly internationalist and subversive news, focused on highlighting the work of people who are organising to forge a better world. First of all, we look at the story of a 3.5 metre puppet of a young refugee girl, Amal, who left Syria in July. She travelled across Turkey and Europe and arrived in London at the weekend. Real Media interviewed Naomi Webb, executive director of one of the production partners of an event at St Paul's in London. She explained that the main purpose of the tour was to give a chance to the many positive voices who understand we need to give refuge to migrants who often flee countries with nothing.
One of the things we wanted to do was to show how many people are in support of people who do want to welcome. For example, we were in Dover on Wednesday, and Dover's got a reputation of being somewhere that's very anti-immigrant, and actually there's a small number of people with a very loud voice, and what the presence of Amal allowed people to do is to say actually there are a lot of people in this town who do support refugees, who do welcome people, and a big event like this, something very visible and very beautiful, can allow people to come together and to have a positive voice. The attitude towards refugees and immigration isn't positive everywhere, and we have also had some negative reactions. A town in Greece that didn't want to welcome us, and unfortunately that is part of the story. One of the things we really wanted to do was to bring young people into this conversation. We've had a huge outreach program that's been working with lots of schools and community groups and young people all across the route to get people talking about what it might mean to leave your country, what you have to leave behind, and what it means to start a new life. So for sure, the younger generation is where the hope lies.
The Science Museum in London is under fire for strengthening its links with the fossil fuel industry at a time when most other cultural institutions are distancing themselves. Back in May, the Shell-sponsored Our Future Planet exhibition opened, and in June, young people from the UK Schools Climate Network were threatened with arrest and evicted by police when they tried to stage an overnight occupation.
However, as you can see, I've got enough officers to arrest every single one of you if you need to. But what you need to understand is, if you are arrested for aggravated trespass, you will be charged with it and you will be sent to court.
Campaign group Culture Unstained uncovered a gagging clause in the sponsorship agreement that prevented the museum from making any statement that could be seen as discrediting or damaging the goodwill or reputation of the sponsor. The museum has inflamed environmentalists further by accepting sponsorship for their new green energy gallery from Adani, which is a huge coal corporation. Yesterday evening, a vigil was held outside of the museum, while inside young activists from the UK Schools Climate Network returned to the museum to occupy it at the closing time. The young protesters refused to leave the building and successfully continued their occupation overnight. Also in London, residents of Milford Towers estate took action earlier this week to highlight and oppose squalid, unsafe and demeaning living conditions. In the London Renters Union (LRU) protest, residents marched on Lewisham Council's offices, demanding greater security, an end to a situation of disrepair and a fire safety review. One resident said his time there has been a nightmare and called it slum living.
Enough is enough! Enough is enough! We are not animals! We are not animals! Enough is enough! Enough is enough! We deserve better! We deserve better!
LRU says the towers are homes to hundreds of low-paid migrant, black, brown and racialised tenants in temporary accommodation, and residents' requests for repairs are totally ignored. The residents' direct action pushed the council to commit to negotiations. Here are the residents giving their letter to the Director of Housing. London Renters Union (LRU) organising also pushed Lambeth Council to serve an improvement notice on the landlord of Dorchester Court. Dorchester Court Tenants Union said, "There are 96 flats at the court and our landlord is on the Sunday Times rich list. Around 500 windows are going to be replaced with double glazing. This is a huge achievement and something we couldn't have managed without fellow members of London Renters Union." Climate civil disobedience activists from Insulate Britain were back out on the streets on Monday, despite High Court injunctions and strong warnings from the Home Secretary. They brought parts of the City of London to a standstill with roadblocks at 3 major intersections. It took police several hours to clear the last of the protesters, and more than 50 people were arrested. Yesterday, the group issued an open letter to the government telling them that further non-violent civil resistance on the motorway was planned for this morning, and asking them to reduce M25 speed limits for the safety of all. Despite no such undertaking from the government, Insulate Britain were out again this morning.
What we're doing is we're asking the government to insulate all the UK homes, and what this will do is this will pull millions of people out of fuel poverty, so people don't have to spend all the wages on the heating bills. This will also be the most cost-effective way to reduce carbon emissions. This will also create hundreds of thousands of jobs. How can our government bring the leaders of the world to Glasgow next month, lecture them on climate change, when they won't even insulate their own homes in the UK?
Outside Britain, the behaviour of Turkish autocrat Recep Tayyip Erdogan requires scrutiny yet again. As Phoenix Media Cooperative previously reported, NATO member Turkey has long launched cross-border attacks on Kurdish communities in northern Syria, aka Rojava, in large part because of its focus on women's freedom, multiculturalism, community democracy, environmentalism, and building a cooperative economy. Erdogan torpedoed peace talks with the Kurdistan Workers' Party, PKK, back in 2015, and has targeted the PKK-inspired political system in Rojava ever since. Despite these being amongst the most effective forces in the fight against Daesh and other extremists in the region. The Permanent People's Tribunal ruled in 2018 that the Turkish state had committed war crimes against the Kurdish people. Turkey's economy is currently tanking, as are Erdogan's approval ratings, and his refusal to release a philanthropist from prison has created a standoff with the country's normal allies. Erdogan may try to fall back on a well-used distraction tactic of launching a military attack on Rojava, and there are reports of Turkey telling its fundamentalist allies in Syria to prepare for a possible operation, but Rojava has many friends around the world who refuse to be silent. Catalonia, for example, now officially recognises the autonomous administration of North and East Syria. In other news, Israel designated numerous Palestinian human rights groups as terrorist organisations, sparking widespread local and international opposition. People in the UK, meanwhile, continued to campaign against the presence of Israeli arms company Elbit, with protesters in Oldham singing songs of resistance and preparing for a performance from rapper Loki at the location.
While we listen to tunes made by ignorant fools, Israel got the UN from delivering food. They bring in the troops and we won't even glimpse of the truth. They make money off the products we are quick to consume. And this is not simply a question of different views. Forget emotions, this is fact. What I spit is the truth. It's not about if you're a Christian or if you're a Jew. It's just people living in different conditions than you.
Long-suffering West Papuan campaigners have been calling for an end to recent Australian joint exercises with the occupying Indonesian forces, which have been responsible for the displacement of almost 3,000 indigenous civilians in the last couple of months. In Africa, the Ethiopian government has continued launching controversial airstrikes in the Tigray region. Due largely to almost a year of conflict, this region has become home to one of the worst global hunger crises in years. Now, following on from the Defence and Security Equipment International Exhibition at Excel in London, and then the Liverpool Arms Fair, which we reported on last week, there is yet another arms trade shindig coming up in November, the Malvern Arms Fair on the 4th of November. As Campaign Against Arms Trade says, the fair is sponsored by BAE Systems, whose military exports to Saudi Arabia implicated in thousands of civilians' deaths in the civil war in Yemen. There's a petition calling for the Three Counties Showground venue to stop hosting arms fairs. That's everything for this week's What's Happening. Thanks for watching and join us again next week. Make sure to hit that like, comment, share and subscribe button. And if you think there's any issues or stories we've missed or you'd like to see us cover, let us know in the comments below or hit us up on Twitter. See you next week.